How did a man who isolated himself in Japan end up building the world's most powerful AI coding tool? Claude Code is so powerful that even someone with zero coding experience can now describe what they want in plain English and have the AI build working software for them, like a website. Before Boris Cherny created Claude Code, he reached the rank of principal engineer at Meta, one of the highest and rarest technical positions in the company. But it wasn't his time in Silicon Valley that helped unlock his greatest achievement. It was leaving it. In rural Japan, he embraced a slower way of living, making miso soup and trading pickles with his neighbors. That change of scenery sharpened his focus and allowed him to build something extraordinary. Before moving to Japan, Boris served as a senior tech lead for Facebook groups at Meta in California, one of the platform's biggest products. Hundreds of millions of people use it every day to join and participate in communities. His days were packed with a regular grind, organizing endless meetings, building slide decks and spreadsheets, writing detailed scoping documents, and rapidly responding to a constant flood of chat messages and emails. As Boris put it, you know what I wasn't doing a lot of? Coding. After relocating to Japan, the extreme time zone difference meant Boris's coworkers in California and New York would leave work just as he was starting his morning. He suddenly found himself with nearly his entire day free. That meant he was involved in not just fewer meetings, but nearly zero meetings. His team pulled him off time-sensitive projects. He was no longer included in important chats, email threads, planning documents, and executive reviews. As he wrote on his blog, "This stung at first. I was used to being included in meetings and learning about new information before others did. These are the things that made me feel important. I didn't want to give them up, but I had no choice." He struggled to figure out how to meaningfully contribute to Instagram. Maybe he'd mentor engineers out of Meta's Singapore office. But it was hard to work on product features while being so disconnected from US headquarters. What truly felt rewarding was coding again. In his first 2 weeks in Japan, Boris landed more code than he had in the entire previous year in Menlo Park. As he reflected, "I'm an engineer, and this made me happy. I missed coding." Coding had been his thing since middle school. He even wrote an online guide teaching other kids how to program basic games and tools on a TI-83 Plus calculator.
I searched it. It's actually still on the internet. It's extremely embarrassing, so please don't search it. But it exists.
And maybe his love of coding runs in the family. His grandfather coded in the Soviet Union using punch cards, when programming meant physically punching holes into paper to give a computer its instructions. At Instagram, Boris started building on a few ideas, like Instagram maps and QR codes, while fixing up the Python codebase. While working on those, he kept noticing bigger problems. Things that were slowing engineers down, opportunities to make the code more reliable, and ways to build better internal tools. That's when he began shifting his focus toward infrastructure and developer experience work, basically writing code that helps thousands of other engineers code better and faster. He started to gain a reputation at Instagram as the guy who really knew the code base inside out, even though he hadn't been there very long. He now found himself coding 80% of the time and producing way more code than most senior engineers. As a result, he ranked in the top 1% of engineers at Instagram by code output. All that deep focused coding in a small village in Japan sharpened his skills in a very specific way. By the time he left Meta to join Anthropic in late 2024, Boris had developed deep technical expertise in large, complex code bases. He had an unusually deep understanding of how to make massive code bases more reliable, how to remove friction for other engineers, how to build powerful internal tools at scale. That experience turned out to be the perfect foundation for what came next. He went on to create Claude Code, one of the world's most powerful AI coding assistants. It's a life-changing tool for developers. Instead of writing every line of code by hand, you can now describe what you want in plain English, and Claude Code generates clean, production-ready code. What used to take engineers hours or even days to build now happens in seconds. Claude Code wasn't a hit when it was first released in February 2025. It was barely usable.
We built it and it kind of sucked at the beginning. It wrote maybe, like 10, 20% of my code.
The first version was bare bones. It could do basic coding tasks, but nothing polished. The team was still figuring out what was actually useful, innovating and learning in real time. Then Opus 4 landed in May 2025, and everything changed. The model became dramatically more capable, and it grew exponentially from there. This has fundamentally changed the job of a coder. As the New York Times described it, the coder is now more like an architect than a construction worker. Developers spend less time building every detail and more time focusing on the overall shape of the software. Several programmers told The Times they felt a bit like Steve Jobs, who didn't design or build products himself, but directed teams of talented designers to create the prototypes that he reviewed and judged. He was the decision maker rather than the builder. And here's the beautiful irony. The man who once coded more than almost anyone else at Instagram built a tool so powerful that he barely codes anymore. In December 2025, Boris tweeted that 100% of his contributions to Claude Code were written by Claude Code. He boldly claimed, "I think at this point it's safe to say that coding is largely solved."
Who writes 100% of their code using an agent like Claude Code? Okay, who's like somewhere in between? Okay, so like 50% solved.
Even at 50%, the transformation is already underway. He no longer just writes prompts to Claude. Instead, he builds loops, small programs that keep prompting Claude, make decisions, run tests, fix errors, and iterate completely on their own, even after he closes the laptop. The model checks its own work and keeps improving while you sleep. The job has shifted from writing code to writing the systems that write the code. For many engineers today, tools like Claude Code are so capable that they now spend far more time reviewing and directing AI-generated code than writing it themselves. But this isn't just a story of elite engineers, or even just engineers. Because if coding is no longer the hard part, then anyone can describe what they want and have AI build it. Imagine a future where anyone can program.
For example, let's say you're writing accounting software. The best person to write accounting software, I think maybe even today, is not an engineer, it's a really good accountant. Because they know the domain really well, and coding is the easy part. It's knowing the domain that's the hard part. And I think this is just obviously the future.
Sometimes I prefer Claude, other times I'll use ChatGPT, and sometimes Grok gives the best answer. The problem is that it means juggling different tools and paying for multiple subscriptions. That's why I personally use ChatLLM by Abacus AI. ChatLLM by Abacus AI brings together the top models in one place, so you can switch depending on what you're trying to do. There's also something called Route LLM that automatically picks the best AI depending on what you need. And a really handy feature is the Humanize feature, which helps your writing sound more natural and more like your own voice. You can also generate images and videos directly inside ChatLLM by Abacus AI, with access to the latest image and video models like Cdance 2.0 and Nano Banana 2. The feature that stood out to me most after making this video is that you can build apps, websites, AI agents, chatbots, and presentations without needing to code. You can just chat with AI and watch it bring your idea to life. You can even create websites that accept payments and launch an online business directly from an idea. All of this is yours for just $10 a month. That is way cheaper than paying for all those AI models separately. If you want to try it, head to chatllm.abacus.ai. That's chatllm.abacus.ai. The link is in the description. Thanks for watching. For Newsthink, I'm Cindy Pom.